super awesome. So the video I have for you is about getting perfectly blended eyeshadow. Now I think it's really important if you're going to do it right. So I have some simple tricks and simple ways of getting your eyeshadow perfectly blended. Yeah, so if you would like to see how I got my eyeshadow perfectly blended, then just keep watching. Yeah. Alright, step number 1 of getting awesome flawless eyeshadow and blending and stuff is using some sort of a primer. I personally do not have oily eyelids, but I know that there are a lot of people that do. So I love the Urban Decay Eyeshadow Primer Potion. Now this is the anti-aging formula, but something else that also works well if you do have oily eyelids would be any of the MAC paint pots. Those are excellent for kind of just keeping your eyelids super matte if you do have oily eyelids. So go ahead and prime your eyelids. This is going to be super important. Basically, the eyeshadows are going to be more pigmented, they're going to look better, they're going to stay in place all day with using a primer. There are a ton of different primers out there. I'm sure you can type it into YouTube and be like, what's the best eyeshadow primer? And people will let you know, what they think and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and prime my eyelids, which will be super important. Alright, so what I'm going to be using next is just, doesn't matter what palette you use. I'm using the Sephora Pantone Universe Modern Watercolors palette. This just has some neutrals in it that I wanted to use and has a good white for my highlight. But of course you don't need this palette, whatever neutral palette actually works really well. So first thing I'm going to do that is really important, and I think this helps me a lot with blending and keeping shadows from getting too dark up under the brow bone, if that makes any sense. Applying your highlight color first, I find really helps me, especially with doing a smoky eye, to blend it out. Because you have this tacky surface on your eyelid already, for the most part, from using a primer, it's good to kind of place the light colors where you want them first, so that when you go to blend in your darker smoky colors, it has something to blend out into. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my highlight. I'm going to apply that under my brow bone. Now don't worry if you actually have a lot of powder packed on there. It's better, because then if you try and go blend out another color, it's not going to be like super patchy. Basically, adding your highlight color first takes away that tackiness, so that if you get a color on this area that you don't want there, there's already this powder surface, so you can just dust it away. It just makes blending so much easier. Now, this is a super pigmented white, which is why I love it so much. Okay, so next, it depends on how you want your eyeshadow. If you want your eyeshadow super duper duper natural looking, you can go ahead and do your base shadow all over your entire lid. That way, when you go to put on another shadow, it's going to blend out effortlessly. Again, it already has that kind of powdered surface, so that when you put a shadow onto it, it'll blend out beautifully. You do want your eyeshadow on your eyelid to be more pigmented, so I'm going to go in with, what color do I want to use? I'm going to use this warm tone shadow right here with my fingertip. Now, this is always an option. Some people don't like to use your fingers, but I feel like I get the most pigmented results with either using my fingers, or you can use a flat head brush like this to kind of pack it on, but I prefer to use my fingers, so I'm going to use my fingers to get this shade all over my eyelid. Just using decent eyeshadows, you should get a pretty good blend if you're using okay eyeshadows. Now, there are a lot of high-end companies that make amazing eyeshadows. There are a lot of drugstore companies that make super amazing eyeshadows. Like e.l.f. makes some pretty good eyeshadows. You do have to be careful with e.l.f. All of their satin ones tend to be super good. Their mattes tend to be a little bit drier, but mattes are harder to do. And a company that has floored me, that I absolutely love, that is drugstore, is Wet n Wild. Wet n Wild has amazing eyeshadows. Please check them out if you have not. I love Wet n Wild eyeshadows. They're cheap, they're creamy, they're amazing, super affordable. Now I'm gonna go in and do my crease. Now we're going to do the crease. I'm going to go in with just a teeny bit of a darker color first. So I'm going in with this color, this one right here. This is just a tad bit darker. Lots of people say, hey, this is a transition shade. So whatever you want to go with, whenever you're doing anything darker, start by applying a little bit at a time. It's really important not to just stab a whole bunch of color in there, especially because this surface here is still tacky. And I want that surface to still be tacky so it's gonna collect and really hold that pigment. This is a kind of smaller domed fluffy brush. This one is by Claire's. It doesn't really matter which one. Press it in there. And getting a decent amount of shadow in there will actually help you blend it out better because you have more powder to blend with. So once you have a decent amount of powder in your crease, you have powder here and you have powder here. These will blend beautifully together. See, I have brought it right up to that line where my shadow, where my crease color meets my highlight color. Then I'm just gonna take whatever's left on this brush, you don't need to add any more product, and just literally buff them into each other. And just buff it all the way up till under your brow bone. Like, how easy is that? Like, you literally can't mess that up. So now I'm gonna do the same thing on the other eye. Now if you wanna go back in, I'm gonna take my highlight brush and just kind of dust that up. You can go in and do the opposite, fade that all the way down. I'm a perfectionist, so just fading that back down, going over the area again with the opposite brush, blending that white down into you know, your crease color, going back in with that crease brush, blending it back up. Perfection. So I'm gonna go in with a fluffy brush. You can just kind of, this is optional, go in with a fluffy brush that's clean and just dust everything one more time just to be sure. I'm gonna add some more. And I'll pull it down on the corners. I'm gonna go in with a darker red in this palette right here. So I'm gonna go back in with a smaller blending brush. I'm going to just tap. Perfect. Now you can keep building this and building this and building this until you get it to the intensity that you like. I'm just gonna go ahead and add a little bit more right on the outer corners here. Rose gold or something, I don't know. Go back in with your fluffy brush and just dust the fuck out of that birch. Just kidding, just dust it away. And that added more definition. Now again, yeah, build that up, and that is how you get perfect eyeshadow. Yes. Be right back. I'm gonna go finish the rest of my makeup and I will be right back. Alright, I'm back. So I just did some simple winged liner and that's basically it. So if you like this video, give me a big thumbs up. If you are subscribed to my channel, thank you. If you're not, you should totally check out my other things. And FYI, I have a lot of other super colorful makeup tutorials, so if you're looking for how to get perfectly blended eyeshadow with like colors and everything, I think I do a pretty good job at it. So check out my colorful tutorials. I did some recently, so there should be some in there. My last one that I did was pretty darn colorful, so check that one out if you have issues blending with colors. Obviously it's a tutorial, so I showed you how I did it, so check that out. Anyway, thank you guys for watching so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Love you, bye! Bye-bye.